Good morning. My name is Tom White, in case you didn't hear that. I'm an energy and utility manager at Eden Housing, and I'm co-presenting with Pete Kennedy, a senior project manager from Bright Green Strategies in Santa Cruz. And we met last year at this event, and unbeknownst to me, Pete had been the energy modeler for one of Eden's projects, farm worker housing community in the Salinas Valley that had been initiated by South County Housing. We acquired much of their portfolio. And so this was a great opportunity for us to sort of bring the circle together here, because Pete got involved with the prior owner, South County, in the development of the project. And here I am as an asset manager for Eden Housing 4 years later saying, what's going on? I'm new to Eden. It's a new position to have an energy and sustainability manager at Eden. And so we thought, well, let's bring the two perspectives together. And I don't think that happens very often in affordable housing. How many people here are asset managers for affordable housing? Guess I'm the only one. Okay, so I'm speaking for the operator. We're the developer. I'm also in charge of the renewables. So I'll do a little more of an introduction. And whoops, let's see here. Advancing, I think I may need help. The right hand button, what's the trick on that?
Amanda in the room.
There we go. Okay, got it. Got it. So click, yeah. So I think I covered this, but after Pete's description of the initial process of modeling the home and the energy loads, and this is a 44-unit community, I'm going to talk a little bit about the benchmarking process, because that's my role. And I also added at the bottom, this is kind of preparation for solar on multifamily affordable homes, where there's going to be a lot of money in the pipeline for the next 10 years. And 51% of those solar installations, the PV credits are going to have to go to residents. And that's really changing how we understand energy and how we plan for energy use when it comes to adding renewables to multifamily. So Eden, by the way, is a nonprofit affordable housing developer. We're managing about 139 communities around the state. We've been in business for 50 years. And our residents are families, low-income families, seniors, persons with disabilities. We also offer transitional and supportive housing. And our goal is to demonstrate that safe, decent, affordable home is a real platform for future success for our residents. And then on to Bright Green. So take it from there. Click.
All right. Well, I'm Pete. It was the first time I got to ask someone who owned one of our buildings, hey, did it work? How net zero we were. And then we started, as you know, peeling the onion from there. So I'm not a graph guy. I'm going to keep your fingers busy on the clicking here. Some context. This is me on the left with the blonde hair and my dad's arms. 1980, that's when we got my start in a green building. And that was taking apart an old barracks in Fort Ord military base and building a center for peace in Santa Cruz. With that comes activism, social justice. Click. This project was a Bracero housing originally, which was when they brought mainly single men up from Mexico to work in the fields. Amazing stuff, very interesting. I felt the renewables in this project were, you know, for me in my heart, like healing the wound of this terrible history. There's Cesar Chavez and Joan on the right. These are the buildings that were there. Click. Terrible. Soledad. Click again. And that's the satellite photo on the right is the original buildings that were there. There's just a horrendous history of problems with this property. Great day when they knocked down those old concrete block buildings. Click. I'm sorry. Click and then click again to the second satellite photo. I have a lot of slides. We had to cram two guys into one slot here. So there's the finished product. You'll notice all the PV. Click. Fancy pictures of the final project. Beautiful. Click. LEED Platinum, Energy Star, etc. Click. Did I miss one? All right, so click into the as-built. This is not innovative. You know, we started development on this 6 years ago. As you know, in affordable, it goes year after year after year after year. The big discussion was water heating, laundry, house loads. So the as-built was individual natural gas tankless water heaters, boo, fairly standard wall insulation, R19, and a good bit of blown-in attic up in the top of the building. This is plus critically QII. That's the inspection you do to make sure the insulation is put in nearly perfectly. Drives me nuts. It's a large part of my day job, unfortunately. Mini split HVACs. The common laundries do have the heat pump water heaters, which at the time were especially controversial, I guess you would say. Normal Milgard vinyl windows. And the bottom of this is cut off, but Panasonic Whisper Green bath fans. My favorite part of the project, an R42 attic hatch, and then lots and lots of PV. So I'm going to keep running through real quick the click, just some pictures of the standard stuff. You've seen this all before. Nothing really exciting going on, but a good 2008 code package. There's a click. There's the unit by unit water heaters in the little closet out on the deck, and a sample of all those PV arrays around the side. We're on the one with the PV on the side and the water heater. I don't have a number here. Okay. Thank you. Clicking again. So this is QII. These guys working like dogs in the heat. It's 100 degrees when I took that picture, fighting all these natural gas pipes in an exterior wall to get the insulation in there perfectly. It's a hard process, QII, with fiberglass. And this was about an hour and a half from our office in Santa Cruz. So it took a lot of drives down there. But there's that feeling of like, oh man, if they fail, I'm gonna have to drive back here and look at it again. So like all construction, it's about getting to know the guys and getting it done right. You can see on the right there, that natural gas really didn't leave much opportunity.
Were you the HERS rater?
Yep, I was the HERS rater, our Office of Energy Modeling. I was also the Greenpoint rater and the Energy Star rater. That's our joke at our office, like name the acronym, we can get that certification. You want 5 of them? Cool, we'll cobble them together. And truly with chasing funding sources for affordable, that's an important question.
And the lead.
And the lead rater. Left that one out. More insulation. Those who know the laws in California will laugh at the do not stuff fiberglass bats into small cavities. On the lower right is the standard attic hatch, which is a piece of sheetrock with the bat glued on top of it. They actually made these, I'm not sure why. Oh, because it was the insulator scope of work when they threw them all away. So end of the day, there's the attic hatch we got into this project. You've never seen an energy geek as happy as I was that day. So that's a big sandwich of foam. The thing locked, which was a huge value to the owner. They had other projects before going up and over to their neighbors and dropping in and stealing stuff. So, you know, when you're selling efficiency, you grab onto whatever you can get. And the security thing, when I heard that, I was like, yes, excellent, great. These are, I don't know, 150 bucks a pop. Really nice. A lot of energy. Yes. Click. 2008 energy code. This is how many % better than code we were, such as it is. We studied all these options, and I have a whole nother slideshow I won't share with all these weird graphs, but the things we looked at were R3 exterior insulation, doing electric resistance water heaters, believe it or not, because it's so much PV. Heat pump water heaters. Then we ran energy models under the 08 code and the 13 code to satisfy different funding sources. They actually agreed pretty well, which was very nice. There's all these technical differences, but the numbers came in pretty close, at least on a site basis. And then there's all the different funding sources requiring their different things. Energy Star, Greenpoint rated lead, enterprise green communities, etc.
Multiple funding sources.
I think there's 18 funding sources on this project at the end of the day.
It was a $21 million project, including a new sewer system, which had to go under 101 and Union Pacific to get to, and a sewer pump that uses a lot of energy, and new water, and relocating almost 50 families for over a year.
These tax credits?
Yeah.
It was the 44 units in the finished, that the labor camp had been built originally for 500 single men in that small space, and to feed at a mess hall over 1,000 in that small space.
So about 550,000 per unit, give or
Yeah.
take, to build them. And so while I recognize this is great and we need farm worker housing, that's a lot for one unit. All right, so my one graph, and I hope it shows up all right. The blue, so this is all source, site energy, no TDD involved. The blue is our baseline building. These are the 4 different residential buildings, B1 through B4, and then the common building. Community room and small office, computer lab for the residents. So you can see the blue, that's already a pretty good energy package. And then we looked at the orange, that's adding rigid exterior insulation. Depending how you read it, Energy Star requires that. And so you can see, you're just taking a little bit off for a fair amount of effort. The gray line is the electric resistance water heater. As expected, use a ton of electricity. This is only electricity. And then the yellow is with the heat pump water heater unit by unit. And there were some modeling intricacies with that. We also have mini splits, which were easier to model under the 08 standard, 13. So long story short, a lot of electricity, and you can see the common building, the software is projecting it's using a ton of electricity. Lead platinum at the end of the day.
Click.
Click. Energy Star rated, click again. Funny thing about Energy Star, it's very bureaucratic. We did all the work, we got our certificates. The builder had failed to do a 1-hour webinar, which would have qualified them as an Energy Star partner. So I got this hilarious quality assurance call a year later saying, we're taking away your Energy Star certification because the builder didn't do their 1-hour webinar. We had to laugh, after all this work and all these forms. It doesn't matter. LEED's the equivalent. Basically, building in California is the equivalent. So
why did the builder not do
it? I was surprised he didn't, but it was just stubbornness combined with, I think, a little bit of politics. To be honest about it, he'd actually had told me he had, so it wasn't missed. Yeah, the builder was pretty good on this project, but it's out in farm country, so it's a bit different than building in the Bay Area. All right, grand opening, yay! All the politicians were there. I was there. It's a wonderful day. The big question: how net zero are we? There are some really unique loads that were really a trick to add on to the energy models. This is a big pump system, and
those are the water.
Water
Those are water
storage.
storage tanks. So there's a big well on site.
So after all this energy modeling, our client at the time said, okay, experts, tell us how much energy the place will use, which is always a heart attack moment for a Title 24 person. I don't do the energy modeling. The guys in our office do, but they're always like, don't tell them this is real. Don't tell them this is real. So then you got all this, you're charging money to model. And, oh, well, it's a policy tool. Don't worry about it. I can only make these jokes because that client's not in the room, right? Tom got all these properties. So the challenge for us was keeping them from using the Title 24 numbers. We didn't feel they're very good for this project. But this is just an example of a spreadsheet where all the engineers were adding. I call it kind of like death by contingency, because each conservative assumption kind of grows and grows and grows. And it's really important when you're figuring out how much PV to put on.
In what way were the Title 24 numbers not good, as you said? Not accurate, not reliable, didn't represent what was actually going on in the
Well, for example, like the common building, which is like a meeting space, a computer lab, and an office with one person there, you're probably putting that into Energy Pro with an occupancy like an office. So, it just shot the numbers up really high. Adding to that are all the maddening technical details. How do you model a mini split? Are we allowed to, once you break from the preferred natural gas heaters, all sorts of stuff goes crazy. And then honestly, lack of experience on my part. I mean, this is like one of my first projects. I didn't have 20 common zoning power bills. which Tom has now. So
And to enhance that, what we've seen from our monitoring is that there's lots of phantom loads on buildings that aren't included in models, miscellaneous loads, where our projects go a little bit south because there's things where there's no way to model them. All we can do is research it and apply it to the next project.
yeah, how many hours is that water pump to be pumping water into the, like, nobody knew. So at the end of all that, we got to,
Water pump. This water pump is wrong.
yeah, the domestic water pump is blank on this one. And then the other impediment was who's gonna put their name on it? And the answer was nobody. You know, the mechanical engineers were like, here you go, Bright Green, you tell the client how much energy this is. And they're like, no, don't you guys want to give an estimate? So there's a whole lot of shuffling around with that, which was embarrassing and not good service.
10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. 165,000. This is what LEED thinks, which is irrelevant, but you know, they think this is one of the worst calculators in LEED existence, in my opinion.
Notice they wanted 202,000 kilowatt hours from renewables.
We got 10 points and 3 extra points because we're 47% net zero, but it's garbage data. It's just for points, I think.
Are you monitoring it to find out how close?
Well, I'll get to
Thomas.
that. That's my job.
All right, that's my common area. Sorry, I'm doing terrible on the click, but 165,000 kilowatt hours for the common.
Units?
No, that's the model.
My projection
Model.
based on model. Yeah. And that's house meter, so common building, the common laundries, which have heat pump water heaters, then all that other stuff we talked
Not the
about.
resident mode.
Not the resident
Just
loads.
the owner paid meter.
We did a as-built click. We did an as-built walk, and the heat pump water heaters seem fine. They need a vacuuming. There's the maintenance guy who was like, "Oh, there's water heaters in these closets." But you know, given all the talk about them failing and such, that's kind of nice. Last thing, this is funny. So the natural gas is so dangerous to have in your building that you need to put these little red things on. And what they do is, if there's an earthquake, they turn the thing off so that it doesn't. It's a good thing, safety thing. We were there with the resident manager. She has this little key. And the kids were having fun kicking soccer balls off these meters, which would then turn off everyone's natural gas. And she would get a call saying, "Hey, my
Water heater's
water heater's not working." So we just had to laugh. It was really, really fun. Well, that's what you get. Yeah, they work. They work really well. But users is the point of that. And
Right.
on the lower right is a return grill with a bunch of Mylar balloons stuck onto it. So again, it's working. It might be restricting the airflow a little bit.
Yeah.
It was really fun for me. So my summary ending is it is happening in Solid. Sorry, that's 2 selfies in one slide. Back to Tom.
Thanks, Pete. That's great.
So
So
this slide is on-site photovoltaics now?
yes,
we are on-site
the-
photovoltaics.
So this is my data. Sunlight and Power put up a 244 kilowatt DC carport system, and the initial proposal to Sunlight had said we want 575 kilowatt hours a year, and we're going to give 60% of that, or 61 to the residents, and 39 to the common area owner paid load. So, and the goal was to offset 100% of the owner paid meters, and the residents, well, whatever's left will allocate to the 44 units by square footage. So what we ended up having is the actual offsets in terms of the PV, we're 95 kilowatts for the PV, and I'm going to just run because we're getting up to 5 minutes. So, the actual kilowatt hours that were produced, or the bottom of the slide, it's sort of right on the margin, 348,000 kilowatt hours a year. So we're less than what the initial RFP had requested, and but it's way over the lead, 202. And you can see we're generating net positive here on the project. These are the surplus kilowatt hours for the owner and for the residents. So we've got about 53,000 kilowatt hours that are going back to the grid. And click to the next slide. It says community building monthly net energy. You can see this is just one of the we have 7 owner-paid meters, so this is just one of them. And the top blue line is the green line is the allocated PV generation. So when you're, when you're generating a lot of power, you have one allocation that you assign when you set up the system. The PG gives you, you can only change it once every 5 years. And I think for this building, it was like 7.5%. So you can see the numbers go up and down depending on the season, but we're really always in a net zero configuration for this particular building because it's the community building, the lights are on, and it's pretty steady loads throughout the year. And that's that flat blue line. So the bottom green line is just sort of representing the credits that we're having, and it's always in negative. Now I did similar graphs for the different buildings. Some of them were over, some of them were under, but if we click to the next slide there, this is the EPA Portfolio Manager Statement of Energy Performance. And to clarify, part of my role as a utility manager is I'm looking at dollars and how much are we spending? Can we spend less? But actually, a lot of what we're trying to do here and what Pete's energy efficiency and modeling was about, let's get the loads down as low as possible. How do I measure that? That's really difficult because in the case like this, where 60% of the PV is going to the residents, I don't have meters on every single, I don't get those meters. I get one number for the entire property from PG&E. Here's your aggregate load for the whole property. So I have to deduct what I know from the owner-paid meters to come up with, oh, well, here's what that the resident total aggregate would be. So we're not metering, we didn't sub-meter or put sensors on all the different equipment. So we've got a pretty low site EUI of 20.7. And you can see that 90% of our energy is coming from solar, which is amazing. Our annual kilowatt hours, and again, this is using the data that PG&E has provided to me. So we're coming up with a source EUI, and it's a difference of about 73% from the typical average nationally that the portfolio manager shows me. So this part of my role here is to work with the utility to figure out how much are we using now site-wide, whole building. It's no longer just from the asset manager's typical point of view of here's what the owners has to pay, let's lower how much the owner has to pay, and the residents, they can pay their own bills. They're separately metered for electricity.
Is that the water pumping and the sewage pumps and all that?
Yep, that's all of it. That's all of it. That's all in. That's all in.
Tom, how come the number of electricity is not, how come you're using grid if you've got surplus solar? How come that?
Which slide are you on? I'm sorry.
46.
Well, the grid is still providing us power at times of the year when the solar is low. So this is actually, there's some amount of power coming in from the grid. We're not generating power 24/7 to cover all of the loads. So this is at an annual basis. There's still some electricity coming in from the grid. We're not on a daily basis bringing in all of the power from the solar. So if you click to the next slide, this sort of shows you the overall picture in terms of usage and the total kilowatt hours and the annual net. So, we're in this situation where, we've got more power than we're using. What do we do with it? PG&E is giving us 3 cents a kilowatt hour, so we get a check for $700, and it's like pennies, and when we talk to the residents, Pete and I went down there a couple of weeks ago to meet with them, and some of the residents say, oh, I've got a $600 credit, thank you very much. It's an old man living in the apartment by himself, very frugal, doesn't turn on the lights, just uses the fan for ventilation. But then there's some families where they've got 5, 6 kids, they're running the water heater all the time, they've got the thermostat set because the kids run off with the remote thermostat and they're playing with the thermostats, and so it goes up and down, and they're saying, how come my energy's so high? His bill is so low. I don't get it. What's the problem here? It's like, oh, well, how many people in your family? What are you doing? And then there are other people who are coming to me and saying, I'm getting lots of phone calls from this marketing group, and they're telling me they're going to lower my gas bill. And I said, great, okay, I signed up. And they said, oh, you owe us $170 for getting onto our, it's a core transport agent, gas transport agent. The PG&E says, fine, go ahead, you can sell them whatever you want to sell them. And so they're taking advantage of these credits that the residents are getting for their electricity because to cover their marketing scams.
Sounds like the owner should do a 1-hour webinar.
Yeah, well, that's what we were doing. So I mean, those are the sort of, it's a new world now where the EPA and utilities and CEC are starting to say, well, tell us your whole building carbon footprint. I'm like, whoa. I'm just keeping track of the owner paid meters here, guys. You're telling me I have to figure out all of this stuff, plus you're telling me I also can get 50% of the resident load covered by the SOMA program. How am I going to work that out and figure it out? So that'll be your project.
Yeah.
And the next one.
And projecting it right. So I mean, the answer was we were 65,000 kilowatt hours overestimating.
Right.
Your comment. Well, it was 165 total. So,
Like 30%
way overestimated. Yeah.
But it means it's you built a very efficient building.
Correct.
And so, they were, and we added a lot of very productive PV. So we're in Soledad, so we got a lot of sunlight out there. And carports, you can position them in the right way, and so it's just open farmland. Yeah.
So was the difference between your SE projections in that the buildings ended up performing way better than you expected, or was it an oversized solar?
I think it's both. Yeah.
Pretty equally.
Yeah.
You should repeat the question for Zoom.
Yeah. Did we under project the energy or over project solar? And you could see in the initial RFP, they wanted almost 600,000 kilowatt hours a year from the initial RFP. They were thinking, oh, guys, you guys can't build a building that would be that efficient. I don't know if they're going to be buying electric farm equipment or something. But did you have a question?
I was just wondering if AB 802, the benchmarking would help you find the data, get the residential energy data.
Right. Did Jen, to repeat the question, did AB 802 help us get the data? Yes. So the only way I could figure out the tenant usage was from getting that information from the PG&E benchmarking portal. And so they gave me one number for the entire property for the electricity use, but then I had to create a number of meters.
Did you consider adding storage, since you mentioned to his question that there are times when you have to buy it back from PG&E?
Yeah, we're looking at storage across the portfolio. EV charging, yeah. So I think we're out of time.
And so this is our 5 minute